I'm Toym Imao. I'm a visual artist. I dabble with several mediums. I would rather call myself as a storyteller more than an artist. When you see my work or works, it doesn't really have that signature style because I work more with narratives. The visual images that come out from those narratives are so varied and diverse. I currently teach at the University of the Philippines College of Fine Arts. I've been so lucky with just basically being around a very artistic environment. I'm more known for creating monuments and shrines for national institutions, local government units, and private individuals who dabble in historical representation. It may be in the form of a mural, a freestanding sculpture in bronze. And for me, I've been doing that ever since I stepped out from college. It's not as free as designing something that you really want, because there are constraints in historical representation. You have to go do it by the book. You have to do it by the instructions of the institutions. Certain sensibilities about public art using public funds, the dynamics of it is quite limiting. So I told myself that I would I would still continue that kind of imaging of history, but in an alternative way. So I came up with several projects, all personally funded, in which I would have a different way of presenting the idea of monuments, the idea of this imagery. If you create a monument, it becomes the truth or something like that, de facto truth. So I wanted to challenge that somehow. So I created all this imagery about past experiences during the 70s, especially when I was growing up during that time, and I focused on that aspect of the dictatorship. And try to relate it with the contemporary times, the manifestations of fascism within contemporary history. And so I dabbled with the idea of creating something that's inspired by the Marcos bust that was destroyed. For me, that was a very powerful imagery. I think it should have been, just retained as a monument to vanity and something like that. Much of the work I do in historical imagery right now also somehow weaves within the fabric of popular culture during that era, in order to somehow embody the zeitgeist of that particular era. This is the product of that, and well, its clouds are actually fists, in the sky. I mean, you have that saying in Tagalog, suntok sa buwan, or when we wish for something, we look at patterns and signs from the skies and the clouds. I mean, it's a very not only an activity engaging by kids, but also adults who dream of something. It's like children high above the clouds with an effigy that's crumbling. I mean, I've been loving this idea of just creating your space, that you're not beholden to any gallery space or I did this in part because I wanted to show my students also, and you don't need to be pressured into going into the circles of our artistic exhibition. I mean, social media or the internet is a powerful tool to even make the smallest of works attain a larger than life presence, and it goes around the world as long as it's properly documented or properly photographed, and it will attain a life of its own. And also, it was also out of necessity. When I came back from my studies and fellowship in the US, it was 4 years, and when I came back, I had to re-establish myself. So I was here doing a serendipity walk around the University of the Philippines, and I chanced upon again the steps of the Palma Hall building, and I told myself, this is a very unused space, and it so happens that it was the 150th, the week where the 150th year of Andres Bonifacio would be somehow commemorated. And I told myself, why is UP not coming up with someone who's, he's the icon. Basically, it's like he represents the ideas of the university. And so I decided, why not come up with this installation? And I did Head of State. These are two headless 9-foot individuals, male and a female, holding a ballot box. That was my very first installation. I took a gamble on that, and it paid off. I mean, it's something that went viral. Installation out of necessity opened a lot of doors afterwards. I mean, it made me realize, wait, I don't need these galleries. And there's the second installation was Voltes 5. The third was something around Mazinger Z, and the conjugal dictatorship. Voltes was more of like for the martial law machinery. Then I did Desaparecidos the following year, also the same year. And then the last one was about Daimos, a float in the Carroza during Holy Week, where the dead body of Christ is put. And I instead of that, I placed the body of a representation of Ninoy Aquino and Ferdinand Marcos side by side with each other to somehow represent how people appropriate necropolitics into appropriating the dead bodies into their own political agendas, and how effective it somehow becomes. It was very personal. So I didn't want to spoon feed my politics into people, but rather present it in a way that it's like candy coated with all this pop culture references, but at the same time the underlying tones of what was represented at the time were actual real world experiences and horrors that happened during the dictatorship. So my very humble intent was to encourage discourse, to encourage storytelling, sharing from a father to a son, an uncle to a nephew, a kuya to his younger brother, about why is this guy doing all this representation about super robots and relating it to martial law. Because for me, I was a 10-year-old kid who was disenfranchised by the Marcos government canceled our show abruptly, and we were on the last 4 episodes that somehow tackled with overthrowing and an evil emperor by the people. And that for me was a coming of age. It was part of my political growth. Wow, I was a 10-year-old kid, and this martial law even affects us as children. I'm now involved in dance and theater, been collaborating with them. But my uncharted territory is really, for me personally, as an artist, is dance. I would want to somehow do something along that line, and collaborate with dancers, or come up with my own choreography, interacting with sculpture. People who don't know me as an artist, have this certain idea that I have this very Muslim name, therefore I come from the South. I'm the son of a national artist, and my art are very political and strong. So they somehow have this preconception that I'm a very, very serious kind of artist. But I surprise people when suddenly they found out that I come out to cosplay Toy-Con events in costume. I'm in a Star Wars armor. I play with these interesting toys, and the playful side of me. And that surprises people. I mean, how can someone who does work so politically charged at the same time be so like kid at heart?